has some things in mind to share with you, but I also want to be very flexible and include what you have said. And this leads me to a very favorite Sufi insight. Blessed are the flexible, for they will never be bent out of shape. My friends, I thought I would first start by saying something about Sufism, because there's so much misunderstanding about this particular sect or movement, how you want to categorize that. The biggest misunderstanding is that most people think that Sufism is a denomination in Islam. Like we have, like in the Christian tradition, you have Catholics and Protestants. In Islam, we have Sunnis and Shias. You're familiar with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. 85% of Muslims are Sunnis, 15% are Shias. Sufism is not a denomination. It is merely, or primarily, a heartfelt aspiration to live the spirit of the tradition and not be lost in the letter of the law. Example, a very conservative Muslim, one of those hardliners, might say, Jamal, if you don't pray, do you know how many obligatory prayers there are in Islam? 5. So Jamal, if you don't do those obligatory prayers, you will burn in hell. A Sufi, I think, would say, Jamal, do you know when you pray, it is as if you are attending a celestial banquet. And if you don't pray, that is your penalty, that is your loss. The confusion arises because in this country we have Christian Sufis, in fact the majority are Jewish Sufis, Hindu Sufis, Buddhist Sufis. So the question arises, can a non-Muslim become a Sufi? Most Sufis say yes. But of course they can explain with a metaphor. They say, have you seen how Muslims pray? You know, they have a prayer rug, and they, do you know in what direction they pray? Mecca. Yeah, towards Mecca, but particularly towards the Kaaba, draped in black. That's symbolically the house of God. We're all exiles, and our heart yearns to return to those realms of the house of God. So a Sufi says, you know, you pray in the direction of the Kaaba, you place your prayer rug out, but what happens? It doesn't matter what tradition you come from. What matters if you're so enlightened that your prayer rug is inside the Kaaba? Then does it matter in what direction you pray? It doesn't. So being flexible, Sufis say anybody can be a Sufi. So in that sense, you're all Sufis, really. By the way, I love these circles of table. It reminds me of that beautiful saying by Rumi, who said, please come out of the circle of time and enter the circle of love. So these are beautiful circles of love. So what does the Quran say, which is the major book of the Muslims, to which they turn to for wisdom and guidance? What does the Quran say about the human being? Now you must know that in Islam, I know today there is a lot of problems with this conflict over economics and politics, but inherently there has always been a lot of spirituality in Islam. This is where Sufis come in. There's a wonderful verse in the Quran that says that God made the human being out of water and clay, and then infused that water and clay with God's breath. And then God asked, in an astonishing verse, the angels to bow down to the human. And they initially objected. And God said, you do not know what I know. And all the angels bowed except for one, who became Iblis or Satan. But the point here is that the human being, in the Islamic Quranic view of humanity, insan it's called, has infinite possibilities. Which is why Rumi, as you probably know, Rumi never wrote, he just uttered. He would go into a trance. So he uttered this wonderful poetry. To each one of us he says, you are a ruby in the midst of granite. How long will you continue to deceive us? For we can see the look in your eyes. So please return to the root of the root of the root of your real self. And this is what I admire about the work that all of you are doing. The real work is about awakening to our authentic divine self, so we can be of authentic service to humanity. As Rumi says, please be a lamp, a lifeboat, or a ladder. But to do that, I must recognize my inner essence, my Jesus nature, Allah nature, Buddha nature, Krishna nature, Elohim nature. And this requires work. Which is why in Sufism this is called the inconvenient work. I'd rather get a PhD and tell you how to do it, but not do it myself, because it is very, very inconvenient. Now, having said all that the human being is so wonderful, the Quran also slips in a verse that says that God has also put in every human being, and in quotation is called the slinking whisperer, out of a divine design. In other words, and it's explained in other verses, of everything God says we have created opposites. So you may know only God is one. So we may learn the power of choices and make the right choice. Something else I want to tell you about the human being. In the Quran it says, before God sent human beings to earth, God gathered all the unborn souls of humanity and said to them, Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your sustainer? God spoke. And we all apparently said, yes, 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 we testify. And we were sent down to earth. This is important because sooner or later in our lives, we will, in some sense, regain a memory of that voice which says, am I not your sustainer? Which led Rumi to utter, there is a kiss we want all our lives. There is a kiss we want all our lives, a touch of spirit on the body. We'll all yearn for that. Which is why in Sufi literature, there's a lot of emphasis on asking oneself, when did I first start becoming a human being? In other words, when did I first feel that splash in my chest where I wanted to turn in a particular direction? To become a seeker, to turn to the inconvenient work of becoming a more developed, complete human being. You know, all this talk about Lectio Divino, meditation, prayers, fasting, it's nice, but it can be very irrelevant for most people who are stuck in the robotic way of life until, and this is where Islam comes in, the word Islam, until something happens. Because we are unmindful. And go back to Rumi. Rumi says, you know, what stands, Jamal, in your way of becoming a seeker are many things. But there are two veils that stand in your way. The veils of health and the veils of wealth. Meaning, when my health is good, or those of my loved ones, Or when I have wealth, not just money, but emotional security, all this talk about all those different things you mentioned, prayers, fasting, is very distant, of course, very, very inconvenient. But should one of those veils break, shatter, cancer, divorce, dramatic shift in circumstances, suddenly deeper questions. What is going on? Why me? And this is the question that Sufi teachers are waiting for. I need help. I really need help. But I need help from someone greater than human personality, from an institution greater than a human institution. Please help. Hafiz, you've heard of the poet Hafiz, 14th century? He has this wonderful poetry. He says, something missing in my heart tonight, something missing in my heart tonight has made my eyes so soft, my voice so tender, my need for God absolutely clear. You know, Rumi had a favorite poet, Adi Riga, and he writes, I was sleeping under a tree and being comforted by a cool breeze, when suddenly a great dove from the thicket began to sing and sobbed with longing. And this dove's cry woke me up and reminded me of my own soul. I'd been so separate from my soul, so late sleeping. But this dove's crying woke me up. Praise, praise, praise to all early waking grievers. So a good question Sufis ask, and to know that those moments are cherished moments, sacred times. Jamal, what are the times in your life? Doesn't have to be one dramatic moment. Could be a series of events. Doesn't have to be sad even. But what made you turn in that direction of becoming a seeker? Those are sacred moments. So I'd ask you just to mull over it in my life. What do I remember, or as a series of events, or just one event that made me turn in that direction? And just be with that for a few seconds. Those are beautiful, tender, cherished moment or moments in your life. For Rumi, it was this phenomenal meeting with his teacher, Shams Tabriz. And there's several versions. Let me just give you one version. You know, I don't know if you know the story of Rumi. His father died when he was young, and they were in Konya in Turkey. And father was a brilliant professor, and Rumi was a child prodigy. I mean, he was extraordinary in his understanding of Islamic jurisprudence, of philosophy, of the sciences. So when his father died in his 20s, he became a full professor. Now, I'll backtrack. Far away was this man named Shams Tabriz. Sort of a holy hippie. Wild hair, long beard, but very, very divine. He was in possession, because of his incredible divine work that he did, he was in possession of divine secrets. And throughout history, those who have been in possession of divine secrets, it's like hot coal in your hands. It burns so much. You want to share this. You just can't keep it. So he was always asking God, you know, is there nobody I can share this with? No answer. And he shared this with many people, the biggest luminaries of his day, but he got no satisfaction. But one day, while he was praying, a voice came, he says, from the depths of mystery, saying, "Ah, Shams Tabriz, there is one. His name is Jalaluddin Rumi. He lives in Konya. Go in this direction." So the story is, as Shams Tabriz proceeded to where Rumi was, and where was Rumi? Rumi was in this fancy courtyard. He was a famous professor, very young, child prodigy, and he had hundreds of devoted students, and he was going over some very valuable manuscripts. And what happens? Suddenly this wild-looking, holy hippie scales the wall, comes in the presence of this respected, venerated teacher, and he shouts out, Shantabri says, "What is all this? Reading, 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 reading." And everybody gets so insulted. Rumi looks at him and says, "You won't understand." Like you hippie guy, you won't understand. What does Shantabri do? He grabs a manuscript, he goes to the water fountain and just dumps them in. And everybody's aghast. Those, my God, those valuable manuscripts. And Rumi rushes to take it out. And what does Shantabri do? He says, "Stop." And he proceeds to take out page by page. But as he takes them out, they become bone dry. And Rumi says, "What is this?" And Shantabri says, "You won't understand." And from that time on starts this relationship where Rumi, he eventually says, I was totally in my head, an intellectual. But after I met Shams Tabriz, my heart has opened up, broken open. I don't know where this poetry is coming from, where these words of beauty are emanating from. And his entire mission after that happens to be encapsulated in these few words. He says, "Listen, my friends, if it happened to me, totally in my head, it can certainly happen to you." And the words are, "Listen, my friends, this is in your power." So his mission seems to be, my dear brothers and sisters, if you can find any way, it doesn't matter what the tradition is, any way to open your heart, magic happens. So one of his poetry is, take a pickaxe and break open your stony heart. Take a pickaxe and break open your stony heart. The heart's matrix is glutted with rubies. Springs of laughter are buried in your chest. So not just Rumi, but so Sufis do a lot of work on the heart, opening up the heart. And there's another reason for that. Why are you so desperate to open the heart? Besides the fact that you experience what is called an inner spaciousness. So you can have more love for the beloved. There's a wonderful Hadith Qudsi. This means words of God that came to the Prophet Muhammad. This happened in a dream where God says to humanity, says to Prophet Muhammad, tell humanity. And God is saying, dear one, beloved one, meaning you, I cannot be contained in the space of the earth. I cannot be contained in the space of the heavens, but I can be contained in the space of the pure, loving heart of my devotee. So this part, for Sufis, is critical to work on, which is why if you see symbols of Sufism, sometimes it's said heart with two wings on them. There's another revelation by God to the Prophet Muhammad where God says to each one of us, God says, beloved one, meaning you, between me, meaning God, and you, there are no veils. But between you and me, there are 70,000 veils. So our work is to remove those veils, remove these veils. So, sooner or later, we'll come in touch with this longing to go deeper, to break out of this hypnotic trance of the life I'm leading. And there's a yearning, like, anybody know Rabia, the most beloved female saint in Islam, 8th, 9th century? She has this wonderful yearning. She says, there's a disease in my breast. There's a disease in my breast no doctor can cure. Only union with that friend can cure it. And she's another utterance. This is Denver. So she would say, here I am in Denver, and yet my heart longs for Denver. What is it I want? What is it I want? And this will come, as I said, for many of us, because we are unmindful, when one of those two veils shatter. For Ruby, I said one situation happened when he met his teacher. How about, I love the story of Gandhi. I don't know if you know Gandhi. He was very timid when he was young. In fact, he used to run to school and come back because he was so scared he might meet people on the way. But somehow, through the will of, willpower, he became a lawyer. But the very first day, he began to advocate for his client. You know, all this timidness came back, and he began to move like this, tremble, shiver. His voice just blocked. He couldn't say a word, was stupefied, and he fell down unconscious. And everybody actually laughed, and he felt so humiliated, depressed. I'm good for nothing. What can I do? Someone suggested turn to spiritual practices. He picked up a meditation actually, and he chose a mantra. But he said what really resonated was a verse he read in the Bhagavad Gita, which said, truth is God. And that verse just exploded in him. And he began to meditate on that again and again. All I have to do is to be truthful. Live a life of truth. And I shall acquire godlike qualities. Do you know when he was assassinated, shot at close range, he did two things. As he was slumping to the floor, he said, I forgive you. He folded his hands and said, I forgive you. And as he was lying on the floor, his lips were muttering. People thought a message for India. They came close. And what was he muttering? Rama, 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 Rama. That's the mantra he had chosen decades ago as his meditational mantra. That was still saying him as he was dying, actually. So I come back to this very important question. What is it for you that made you turn in that direction? And after I've said these few words, please contemplate on this again. What was it for me? One event or series of events that has made me a seeker. And why don't we connect with our divine identity. Think about it. Why, if you're being told again and again within you is your Jesus nature, your higher self, Allah nature, Buddha nature, Krishna nature, Elohim nature, why don't we take that seriously? Think about it. Why? In fact, in Sufi circles, you have to really, really think about it. Why didn't I in my life? I'm in my 60s, 70, 80. I never thought about it. That I've told people you've got a higher self, lower self, but I myself never did the practices or never contemplated on the urgency or the primary need as a reason for my existence on earth to connect with my higher self. Why not? So Rumi says there are three reasons. One is, it's because of our culture throughout the ages that we define ourselves by our outer identity. I've written so many books, I'm a Sufi minister, I do this, I do that, I have so much money in my bank, I get this kind of car. That's my outer identity. I miss out on my inner reality, on my inner identity. I miss out on that. I don't pay much attention to that. Ask yourself, how do I view others? Do I really view them as per their essence, inner identity, or outer identity? Why don't I connect with their authentic self? How do I treat those who offer me no material advantage? Anyway, that's the first reason. The second reason is, Rumi says, does a person who inherits wealth understand the value of wealth? Jamal, you received your soul for free. You take it for granted. And reason number three, Brother Jamal, don't worry, it's okay. That's why you're here on earth. Foredoomed to slumber so you might awaken. Foredoomed to forget so you might remember. Oh, good. I had time. Wonderful. You know, I was telling Sister Michelle, I'm from the East. I can go on talking and talking, and I would go on talking and talking until somebody starts to snore. And that's why I better stop. And this reminds me of another story of the mullah. The mullah has traveled all over the world. Mullah, do you know who the mullah is? Mullah is a mythological figure in Islam, repeatedly used by the Sufis to convey an essential teaching, rather than sermonize and repeat the prose again and again. They would rather tell you a story and ask you to meditate on that. The mullah is usually on his donkey. He wears a turban, he has a beard, and he's on his donkey rushing to the marketplace. Everything is allegorical. And people say, Mullah, I want to talk to you. He says, no, I'm very busy. So what are you so busy about? He says, I am looking for my donkey. And the caption is RPO. So the mullah, who has become famous all over the world, the mullah goes to London Museum. And here's this very famous professor saying, this artifact is 5,000 years old. Mullah says, excuse me, it's 5,004 years old. The guy doesn't say anything, but he kind of wonders who's this crazy guy. He goes to another artifact, this is 50,000 years old, excuse me. It's 50,004 years old. Another guy is very annoyed. Happens a third time, 70,000 years old, excuse me, 70,004 years old. So the guy says, sir, you wear a turban, I gather you from the mysterious East, but how can you be so laser sure about these dates? It's simple. I was here 4 years ago at that time. You mentioned those days. Has many levels of meaning, but one level of meaning is Jamal is later than you think, so I better make my points quick. By the way, about knowing who you really are, the mullah has a story. The mullah goes to China, and this follows a saying of the Prophet Muhammad, for the sake of knowledge, travel as far as China, metaphorically. So the mullah actually goes to China, enters a bank for a financial transaction. After there's some talking, the financial officer says, "Sir, can you prove your identity to show that you are who you say you are?" What does the mullah do? He reaches into his pocket, takes out a pocket mirror, peers into it, says, "Yeah, that's me, all right, I certify it." So that is a starting point in Sufi teaching about how do you identify yourself? By your outer identity. Okay. I would like us to do, before I go on, a chant. You know, I'm a bit of a chant junkie. I love chants. There's an Islamic chant, Allahu Allah. Repeat after me. Allahu Allah. And the point is, this is just praising the God of all of humanity. And when we praise God, God doesn't become holy, we become holy. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Give it more voice, more times. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Once softly. Because here's the insight. In this created world, whose ever approval you seek, you become their prisoner. It's not a question of good or bad, just a question of the created law of this world. In this life, whose ever approval I seek, I become their prisoner. So ask yourself, in my life, whose approval am I seeking right now? In my life. Because I am the prisoner. Again, not about good or bad, just is. I remember when I was young, my parents gave me this Islamic Sufi koan, you might say. You know, study this. Whose ever approval you seek, you become their prisoner. And you know, it sounded pretty logical to me, obvious to me. So they would ask me, did you understand it? Of course I did. But then they realized and told me, you have to move from a knowledge of the tongue to a knowledge of the heart about this. And only after months, many months, they gave me the second part of this. Whose ever approval you seek, you become their prisoner. Therefore, choose your jailers with care and deliberation. That's the key. Choose your jailers with care and deliberation. Do you know this man named Muhammad Khamisa? He became very famous in the late 1990s. In 1995, his son was murdered by a gang member, only 14 years old, who took orders to shoot him because Khamisa's son was delivering pizza and he wanted a pizza without paying it. On the orders of his gang leader, who was only 18 years old. So Khamisa's son died in 1995. And he said it was just nuclear. When it hit him, he couldn't get out of bed, he was depressed. he said, what can I turn to? He said, the only thing I have is my faith. What does my faith say? Well, come from your higher self. Connect with your divine self. Connect with divine qualities. And he restarted all the spiritual practices he had learned years ago. Really being motivated to do all the inner spiritual work. And he says, by doing this, it took some time, by doing these inner spiritual exercises, by connecting, by awakening, not to the needs of his personality, which wanted revenge, but to the needs of his higher self, which wanted higher awareness. And Khamisa, do something, do something, do something. We said, this connecting with the higher self through the spiritual practices, it awakened him to the truth that there are two victims on both sides of the gun. And in his heart, he actually felt compassion for this 14-year-old African-American child who had murdered his child. These spiritual practices, as it awakened him to his higher self, and his point is, believe me, I'm telling you the truth. It is possible. It is possible. This is not just theoretical. It happened in my life. I was able to awaken to realizing the victims on both sides. I was truly able to not only forgive him, but he was able after some time to visit him and to start a foundation, because you realize my faith is telling me, my higher self is telling me, Khamisa, this is an opportunity to do something, to be a lamp, a lifeboat, or a ladder. He became friends with that young boy's guardian who happened to be his grandfather. I think his name was Felix. And together they started a program of visiting schools all over America and talking to at-risk youth about violence, about integrity, about compassionate confrontation. And they have changed the lives of millions of people. But the point I wanted to convey is, Khamisa says again and again, like Rumi says, listen, my friends, this is in your power to do that. But you have to do this work of inner spiritual practices. Gandhi, I love this story, he dared, had the audacity to buy a first-class ticket in South Africa. And he sat with the whites. Of course, what happened, he was physically ejected, brutally ejected from the train, and he landed on the platform. He was bruised, he was late night, no more trains, it was cold, he was shivering in the cold, and he was thinking about what? Revenge. He was a lawyer. Well, I don't need to play anything bad, I'm just saying he had access to knowledge of how to do that. But then another voice said, connect with your higher self. Awaken to your divine self. What does the divine self say? So he started doing spiritual practices. It took some time, but when he reached a certain point, he told everybody, I want to make one boast. He said, I know boasts are not good, but I want to boast. I want to boast. He says, believe me, it's excited. He says, it's excited. After doing these spiritual exercises again and again and again and again and again, I have reached a point where I don't have any hate for my oppressors. No matter how oppressive, no matter how cruel they are. I hate the behavior, but I don't hate them. And I'm so excited because I've been able to reach that stage in my life. Or that spiritual state I've achieved by doing those spiritual exercises. Listen, my friends, this is in your power. So, what are those exercises? Well, maybe in the second half I can talk about it. So right now, maybe let's just become very still again and just allow whatever I have said to perfume your heart, as it were. friends, I want to share two teaching stories. I'd like you to really contemplate on them. One you must have heard because it's gone all over the world. I'd be surprised if you don't know this one. But it really started with Rabia, a beloved female saint, 8th, 9th century, who was so eager to transmit a teaching, but everybody heard but didn't quite listen, or listened, didn't hear. It just passed through them. So the story, the familiar one is, this is 8th, 9th century. She's looking for a lost key at night. In those days, of course, no electricity, but there's this pillar of fire. She's looking and looking. They say, what are you looking for? She says, I've lost my key. So they all join in for the search. Where is the key? After hours of searching, they cannot find. They say, beloved Rabia, can you kind of tell us where about in this area you might have dropped it so we can focus on that particular area? And what does she say? She said, actually, I didn't lose it here. I lost it miles away in my house over there. They say, you lost it? They're looking for a key. Why? She said, because you see, my house has no light at all. There's so much more light out here. So they all laugh. She says, you've laughed, which tells me you are intelligent people. But she says, now you please tell me. When you have lost your peace of mind, your contentment, your happiness, because of some failed relationship out there, or a plan that did not transpire, and you blame this, you blame that, you work at this, and you work at that, and that's very important. But you did not lose it out there. You lost it inside here, within you. But of course, it's so much more dim and dark and inconvenient to look for it there. This in Islam is called a qibla, direction, looking for things in the right direction. So just be with that for a few moments, asking yourself, how does this apply to my life? Am I looking for things in the right direction? Okay, my friends, here's another story. This is called the real gem. This appears both in Buddhism and in Islam, in Sufism. So let me, out of courtesy, use the Buddhist traditional story. Same story appears. In Islam, it's a Sufi darvish. Darvish means someone who's on the threshold of both worlds, a holy person. So this Buddhist monk, I don't know if you know Buddhist monks, they are totally dedicated to service. So they don't have time to cook food. So they ask for food from house dwellers. So this particular monk or Sufi darvish goes to a house, and it happens to be the house of a jeweler. And of course, they're delighted to give food because this will gain them merit. So as they bring the food and the darvish or the monk opens the pouch, the jeweler is stunned because he sees in his sparse pouch an extraordinary, priceless, precious stone, a jewel. He says, monk, where did you get that? That's like worth $100 million. I'm a jeweler. How did you get that? And, he has calmness, equanimity. In Islam, he has a sense of surrender. He says, I kind of remember a disciple gave it to me 5 years ago. And then the Darvish monk says, do you want it? Of course not, this belongs to you. I can't have it, it's yours. So I know, because it belongs to me, I want to give it to you. I choose to give it to you. He takes it and puts it in the hand of the jeweler, and the holy man goes away. And now The jeweler is beside himself, exhilarated, ecstatic. His life has changed, life of his children, life of his children's children, $100 million worth. But now, questions. Should I tell my wife right away? Of course, she's my wife, I love her. But I know my wife will tell it to her sister, who's so gossipy. The whole village will know. Should I hire guards? Of course I must hire guards because something's so valuable. But if I hire guards, people will know it's something very valuable. Should I hire guards or don't hire guards? Should I tell IRS or not about this? Question after question after question after question. Cannot sleep a wink. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, just sleepless nights. On the 10th day, he gets an insight, grabs that jewel, and runs after this holy man who has moved on, but finally catches up with him and says, holy man, please, 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 take this gem back, but give me the real gem. The real gem? Yes, I realize the real gem is the ease, the equanimity, the peace with which you are able to give me this precious stone. That is the real gem. That is what I really want. So, good question right now for me and you. In my life, am I aspiring for the real gem? Is it form or essence I'm aspiring to in my life? Just be with that. The question I ask myself all the time is, how should I live my life? And I learned this particularly from a Christian missionary who I met many years ago. And he was telling me that he had spent 40 years in Africa. And he was sent there because his superiors were telling him that, in that, I don't know what you say, parish or locality, the natives are in an alarming number becoming Muslims. And I want you to go and take this team of people and really counter that. She said he went there and he spent 40 years. And he says, and he was telling me, he was in his 90s, he was saying, how I regret that I was so conspiratorial. How I regret that I ended my life, or spent my life, serving the kingdom of Caesar and not the kingdom of Jesus. How I wish in my life I had been more Jesus-like and less Caesar-like. And that really struck me. How am I living my life? It's a good question to you. How are you living your life? And why are we so attached to our stories, our beliefs? One of the most powerful interfaith conferences I went to was an international interfaith conference with very high-powered leaders. And at a certain point, there were Jews and Christians and Muslim leaders on the panel. And they began to argue about stories of Abraham, Moses, Sarah, Hagar, Ishmael, Isaac, and their voices became believe me, louder and louder and louder. And we, the people around, were getting a little fidgety. We were getting actually quite embarrassed. But there was a Native American professor from New York University. He's unfortunately passed on. He was rolling on the floor with laughter, just laughing and laughing and laughing and laughing. Finally, somebody said, "What is so funny?" He said, "You guys," meaning you monotheists, "you guys, you believe in stories." He says, "We have stories too. The only difference is you believe those stories." So that gave me a sense of how attached we are to our stories and beliefs. We will, debate about it, argue about it, we'll even kill for it, except what? Live it. Somebody was asking, and I'll do it very briefly because we just have 4 minutes before doing the next session after lunch. What are some of the stages of interfaith dialogue? We wrote a book about it called Getting to the Heart of Interfaith. I just want to throw it out to you very briefly, and we can talk about it more. The first stage is get to know the other on a human level. Don't talk about beliefs, theology, politics. Talk about human stories. Remember that saying, the universe is not made out of atoms, it's made out of stories. Connect. Practice what in Central Asia is called the 3 cups of tea. Listen, respect, connect. Second stage. Gain some understanding, no matter how brief it is, an appreciative understanding of the other person's religion. You cannot say, "I'm open-minded." The sages will say, "What are you open-minded about?" You must have religious literacy. Because if you don't, when a crisis happens, believe me, even the best of minds go foggy. It's happening right now with Islamophobia. So second stage is an appreciative understanding. You don't have to be in detail. What are some of the tenets of that tradition? And I mean not from Fox News or CNN, but really some better source of knowledge. I don't mean to criticize, but that can be very superficial. Okay, third stage. This is the most critical one. When there is friendship, when there is a willingness to be vulnerable, then talking about what are called particular verses and universal verses. Particular verses that don't quite conform to the core teachings of that tradition, of oneness, of love, of compassion. And then there are universal verses in every tradition that are timeless, placeless, to acknowledge them. Fourth stage is, because we have a friendship, because we have talked about more difficult things, to enter into more difficult conversations. We travel all around the country. There are many Abrahamic groups, alliances, but the moment the question of Israel-Palestine comes up, it's as far as it can go. Unless they have done the groundwork of establishing authentic friendship relationships. I and Brother Ted, Rabbi Ted, we have, shall I say, vigorous conversations, sometimes so vigorous, wow, you wonder what's going to happen, but then Pastor Don McKenzie intervenes, and there is peace. But because there's friendship, the dialogue continues. And the last stage is being open to the beauty and wisdom of other traditions. I, as a Muslim, when I'm open to the beauty and wisdom of other traditions, this waters my Islamic roots. Not only makes me a better Muslim, a more developed, more complete human being. That's why we say interfaith is not about conversion. It's about completion. Becoming a more complete, developed human being. And my friends, I'm right on the dot, 11:45. are like two birds on the branch of a tree. One bird is pecking away at the fruit. The fruit could be sweet, the fruit could be bitter, that's life. But I'm also the other bird on the same branch, just witnessing, observing, compassionately, non-judgmentally. So today, just for today's presentation, I would love to suggest that, as Sufis would say in every retreat, let's make a commitment right now that I turn on the switch of self-witnessing. I begin to witness myself. But I make a commitment to do that from now on. Compassionately, gently, mercifully. Otherwise, I'll stop doing it. Knowing that the things I find difficult, awkward, unacceptable within me is me, but it's not the real me. I'm more than that. I'm more than my personality. What is personality? Nothing more than a bundle of conditioned reactions to life's circumstances. My father, my mother, this thing happened, that thing happened. How you reacted to that? That it creates my personality, but I am more than my personality. I am that, but I'm more than that. If I'm compassionate, I'll have that higher awareness. So in Sufism, rather than preach as I'm preaching right now, Jamal, just tell some stories, mullah stories, that you can relate to. I'll repeat some of them tomorrow because they have so many levels of meaning. So you might just get one level of meaning. Like I continuously, I wrote the book on that for that reason, I have been meditating on mullah stories because they have at least 7 levels of meaning. So you must hear them and meditate on them at least 7 times. So the first one is to become aware of our stuckness, our patterns of thinking, our patterns of doing, both individually, collectively, and even globally. We are stuck. So just be with that. Ask yourself, how am I stuck in my patterns of thinking and doing? And how will I ever get out of it unless I witness myself? If I do it with compassion, the light is brighter. And just the act of witnessing will reduce the shadow and give me the opportunity to make the right choices. See, all spiritual teachers say, what is spiritual growth? Of course, difficulties will happen. Anger, jealousy, bitterness, hatred, anger, arrogance. But when I'm doing all that, in spite of the difficulty, particularly because of the difficulty, I make the right choice, I become spiritually empowered. Something grows within me. I become more complete. It becomes easier more and more to deal with this difficulty, which will come up again and again and again. The Rupi has a wonderful insight. He says, Brother Jamal, don't run towards difficulties and pain and suffering because they have lessons for you. Just don't run away from them when they happen in your life. So now I come back again to ask the question to you. Are you aware of your patterns? So let me tell the story. So that I want you to think again. This is, by the way, the Interfaith on Ego's most favorite story. We say it every time, wherever we go. The mullah goes to work at lunchtime, opens his lunch pail box. What does he find? A cheese sandwich. As Reverend Michelle says. Finds a cheese sandwich. Second day, third day, fourth day, it's always a lousy cheese sandwich. 10th day, mullah says, I'm getting sick and tired of this lousy cheese sandwich. So his puzzled co-worker said, Mullah, why don't you ask your wife, be convincing, be persuasive, to ask her to make you a different kind of sandwich? I'm not married. Who makes them? I do. So ask yourself, this story, how does it impact me? What are some patterns I am stuck in? Plus, if I don't observe myself, if I don't witness myself gently, compassionately, how will I ever break that pattern? So be with that for a few seconds. Okay, my friends, let's move on to the next one. Another one. To become aware that, as the Sufis say, whether you know it or not, consciously or unconsciously, your ego has a very exaggerated opinion about itself. So just be with that. Really, is that true, Brother Jamal? Bye-bye. We haven't talked about this. I always call myself Brother Jamal. That's a practice called sacred naming of compassion. Give yourself an endearing name. So I have constant conversation with Brother Jamal. So Brother Jamal, and I never get bored, believe me, because of that. I and Brother Jamal have constant, entertaining conversations. So ask yourself, is that really true, Brother Jamal? Is it really true that I have an exaggerated opinion of myself, really? So here's a story of the mullah. On a moonlit night, he's going on one of his constitutional walks. He happens to pass by a well. He peers down into the well, and what does he see? The moon has fallen into the well. And he's so stunned, and he's so concerned. He says, Sister Moon, fear not. You know, the Muslim calendar is based on the lunar calendar. So he's very concerned. So, fear, I'll help you. He runs home, gets a rope, ties a hook onto it, puts it down. He probably catches something. He heaves and pushes and really pushes very hard. Something loosens. He falls on his back and sees the moon restored to its proper domain. And he says, thank God I came along. That's a story to let you know. Are you sure you don't have the same opinion about yourself in your life? Just, the best way to judge it is if you feel somebody else has a high opinion of himself or herself, then for sure you also have the same thing. So what is it about you that you're not looking at, where you have an exaggerated opinion about yourself? It's not a question of criticism, it's a question of awareness. Essential awareness. So one really learns this wonderful divine quality of humility. And humility is power. From all the metaphors in nature, the sea is the sea because it lies lower than the rivers. Or the rivers flow into it because it is humble. Look at a tree. The tree which is laden with fruits is the one which is bowing down. Humility. Nature provides the best examples. Okay, just be with that. Again, it's not criticism, it's awareness. Awareness. Good. In Islamic spirituality, if somebody praises you for a virtue, or you do something very wonderfully great, where people praise you, you always thank the person. It's critical, you thank the person, but within you always say, Astaghfirullah, which literally means I beg repentance. Not because I did something wrong, quite the contrary, I did something so good, but I beg repentance because I fear the ego will have the better of me and will claim all credit for it. So to prevent that from happening, the mantra is Astaghfirullah, 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 Astaghfirullah. Okay, let's move on to the third one then. Excuses. What are your excuses? That's my favorite one because I have a lot of excuses. I particularly like this because I remember my father particularly would say, son to my, he's called me beta means son. You have your excuses, my dear son, are so creative. If you use part of it towards this spiritual work of enlightenment, you become enlightened very fast because they're so creative. So think of your creative excuses. And the danger with excuses is if you make one excuse and build it upon a lie, the scaffolding becomes very weak as you build it higher and higher and higher. It becomes very fragile. Very fragile. So you can ask yourself, what are my excuses? How will I ever break out of them until I become aware of them? And some of them are habitual. In fact, poll after poll about truth, very few of us, the polls show, speak the truth. Not because we are bad people. We have a habitual way of avoiding, denying. Oh, he's not here at home when the phone call comes. He's here, but he's not here. It's a little lie. It's still a lie. We have become habitual to telling little lies. It has become a habit to make up excuses. I know that very well. So really, I ask you to ask yourself, am I aware of my excuses? And laugh at them, especially the creative ones. So here's a story, and I'll ask you to meditate again. Someone goes to the mullah's door, his neighbor, and knocks on his door, and the mullah opens the door, and the neighbor says, "Can I borrow your donkey?" That's done in that part of the world. And the mullah doesn't want to keep the donkey. He lies, makes up an excuse. "Oh, brother, if only you had come 5 minutes ago. Somebody else borrowed it." But unfortunately, just at that time, his donkey in the stable begins to bray. Neighbor says, "I hear your donkey." The mullah's caught. What does he do? Pretends to be angry. "Who will you believe? Me or the donkey?" And he says, "I'm so glad this happened because now that I know your mental disposition, I could never in any case lend my donkey to somebody with your mental disposition." So the excuses become more and more complicated. So what are, again, I ask you to become aware, your excuses. Just a few more seconds. What are my excuses? Okay, let's do at least one or two more. Sufis are very big on this. How slavishly I am dependent on authorities and experts. I forget to do what the Prophet Muhammad said. He said, no matter who the authority is, religious or non-religious, of course take their advice, but please first consult your heart. Consult your heart. But begin to ask yourself, who am I dependent on for opinions, beliefs, advice? Am I slavishly dependent? Or do I consult my heart? Maybe you do, and that's great. The story. The mullah is gravely ill, something on his deathbed. And his wife is wailing and crying, and everybody's very, very upset. And now here comes the authority, the allopathic doctor. He comes in, so meticulously examines the mullah, then turns to the wife and quotes the Quran, or says something very eloquent. Oh, honorable wife of the mullah, your husband is dead. His soul has passed on into the bosom of God. He is no more. The mullah is not dead. The mullah is feebly saying, very feebly, quietly saying, I'm alive, I'm alive, I'm alive. What does wife say? Quiet, don't argue with the doctor. This is meant to shake us out of this dependence on authorities, on experts, forgetting there is an inner teacher within you. Forgetting the heart never falsified what it saw. Not having faith and belief in oneself. So just speak with that for a few seconds. In what ways do I betray myself? In just blindly listening to authorities, only one side, because it confirms what I believe in, what I've been